And now we will talk about tragedy. Poetics assumes tragedy to be the highest form of poetry, and it is with such insight and comprehension that it becomes a specific type of theory of literature. Aristotle begins by pointing out that imitation is the common basis of all fine arts. In Sanskrit literature, we do not, subscribe to this view. Imitation is specifically a Greek concept, and which the West followed thereafter. But as far as Indian criticism is concerned, imitation is not central to the concept of creative art and creative formulations. Thus, he says poetry differs from painting and music in this medium of imitation, and poetry itself is divisible into epic and dramatic on the basis in the manner of imitation. The epic narrates, drama represent through action, and tragedy imitates men as better and comedy as worse than they really are. So these are two assumptions. What these two forms of art would do to an individual is comedy would lessen the dignity of a person, whereas tragedy is something which is rising the consciousness or sublimating his existence in a dramatic formulation. Now he says tragedy is a superior form of literature, and there are iambs or invectives on one hand and hymns on gods or panegyrics on the great on the other. So these iambs or invectives, they developed into satire. They were satiric in nature, and the hymns and panegyrics into epic or heroic poetry. Out of heroic poetry developed tragedy, and out of satiric mode came the comedy. So they say that tragedy is a later development, and it is therefore a higher kind of art than the epic. So we can say it's an evolving perception of art, that it evolved basically from the hymns and panegyrics into the epic form of poetry, and from epic to the tragic heights. Now, compared to epic, both epic and tragedy, they imitate serious subjects in a grand grand kind of verse. But they differ that epic imitates only in one kind of verse, both for its choral odes and its dialogues. The epic is more lengthy, comprehensive, and varied, but the tragedy has much greater concentration, and so it is much more effective. Because of the limitation, it is compressed and it's more effective in bringing out the cathartic element in the audience, amongst the audience. Tragedy has all the elements which the epic has, while there are certain elements of tragedy which the epic does not have. Now, in excess to epic, it constitutes all the elements which epic has, but beyond that, tragedy has something more than that. And what is that? Epic lacks music and spectacle, which are important constituents of tragedy. So in these two things, tragedy is superior to epic, that it has music and spectacle. It also has a reality of presentation, unity of action, both of which the epic lacks. Tragedy is superior because all the parts of an epic are included in tragedy, but those of tragedy are not all of them to be found in the epic. So it is something which is exceeding the epic. Now, talking about the definition of the tragedy is, if we quote Aristotle, then let me read it out to you. The tragedy is an imitation of an action, serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude in a language, beautified in different parts with different kinds of embellishment through actions and not narrations, and through scenes of pity and fear, bringing out the catharsis of these or such like emotions. Now, it's a very comprehensive definition, and it has wide meaning, and it can be interpreted in various ways. And the imitation of an action and not narration is concerned with tragedy as one of the imitative arts and points out its medium, objects, and manner of imitation. Now, in the next lecture, we will talk about the objects of imitation, the plots, its function, unities, and other things. Thank you.